In today's video, I'm going to be taking a look at 8 incredible FPL picks that all offer great value beyond their FPL prices. Hey everyone, Sam here, otherwise known as FPL Pricey, and in today's video, I'm going to be checking out 8 players that I believe offer great value for money, not necessarily the cheapest players either, by the way, but players that are maybe a little bit underpriced for what they could actually give you in your FPL sides. If you enjoyed today's video, if you could leave a like and hit subscribe as well, that would be really appreciated. But also hit that notification bell and you won't miss out on any of the future content as we start gearing up for game week 1. Stay tuned for a special announcement at the end of today's video as to how I'm powering the videos this year. You'll notice a number of really cool data points that previously I haven't had access to. So all of that information is coming towards the end of the video. In the meantime, let's start talking about Eberiche Eze. Although he's not cheap at 7.5 million, I think as long as he stays at Crystal Palace, which at time of recording looks likely, I think he is underpriced. I think there is an opportunity here to seize because he does tick a lot of boxes that you would look for when picking an FPL asset. So 7.5 doesn't break apart your side in the first place either. It's a price point that is relatively achievable. And if you look at the data that Eze puts up season on season, it is actually phenomenal for this price. So he averages over 0.5 XGI per 90. Last season, 2/3 of that was in goal threat, so 0.36 of that, partly because he was on some penalties as well. And I think that's important to note. To have a 7.5 million fairly talismanic midfielder in a decent Premier League side who is also on penalties is pretty rare to have at that price point. I think that is an opportunity that I want to look at trying to seize if at all possible. Yes, he got 16 attacking returns last season. That's not special, but it's also not terrible. And considering the minutes he got, because he had a couple of injuries, it actually runs at about a goal or an assist every other game, which is exactly what you'd expect from the data. Now, I've run some numbers based on some analytic tools, which I'll come on to towards the end of the video. Stay tuned for that. But from the first 5 game weeks, he's expected just under 5 points per game, which is very decent for someone at this price point. And over the first 12 game weeks, he's expected to get an XGI per 90 projection. So on average, if he plays 90 minutes every single week, he'd be expected to get 0.54 per game across those 12 game weeks. So what that means over the first 12 game weeks is if he does play the 90 minutes across all of those weeks, he'd be expected just over 6 attacking returns, which again, at that price point is absolutely fine. I would not be rejecting that at all. So despite the fixtures not looking the best, he's still a standout pick at this value. And I think when you put him up against some of the slightly more expensive midfielders up at 8 million, he actually probably holds his own, if not maybe even slightly outperforms them when it comes to the projections over the first few game weeks. So that's why I think he's very good value for money. I think a player who has penalties, who is fairly talismanic, good underlying expected data as well, to have all of that and to be coming in at 7.5 is a little bit of an opportunity. And it's one that I'd like to seize if at all possible. So player number 2 is Strand, another player who did really well last season, 18 attacking returns, including 14 goals. And we've talked about him on this channel a little bit before, so I won't get as bogged down. But I think in principle, what we're looking for from Strand isn't game-breaking stats, but someone who ticks along very nicely. At 6.5 million, I think they've underpriced him by at least 0.5, especially when considering he's lost his previous talisman in the team, Matheus Cunha, obviously gone to United. He was previously on penalties as well. Strand is probably going to have the benefit of penalties this season. So this data, although it looks already pretty decent, I think is going to look better this season. Game week 1 against Man City is putting off a lot of managers, so he's only 5.9% owned. But after that, he's got a great run all the way through to around about game week 12. So he's a player that's actually snuck into my draft in recent days. And I think it's going to take a lot for me to want to take him out. He's got good minutes. He's got decent data, which I expect to improve in his second season in the Premier League. And a pretty decent replacement for Cunha coming in, who's a little bit more heavy on the assist threat, Arias. Strand is likely to be the talismanic figure at Wolves this season on penalties. So I think the data will be better. And if you look at the projections towards the bottom here, over the next 5, he's expected just over 4 points per game. Absolutely decent considering Man City and Newcastle's in there. And the XGI projection for the first 12 game weeks is actually even better than what we saw for Eberechi Eze, and a lot better than what we saw from Strand Larsen last season. So what the market odds are saying is this is a player on the up. It's a player that we expect to do better on the underlying data than we saw last season. And those first 12 game weeks, if you're looking at postponing the wild card, if you're getting 0.57 actual output from him per game over the first 12 game weeks, you're looking at 6 to 7 returns. That is absolutely great at 6.5 million as your third striker, maybe even arguably as your second striker as well, especially when you consider that's largely goal threat. So you're looking at probably 5 or 6 goals in the first 12 if you look at that projection data and you trust it. And once those first few game weeks are out of the way, if you wanted to maybe jump onto him after game week 4, then that data is probably looking even better as well. It's probably a shade down on what you'd expect it to be because of the Man City and the Newcastle fixtures. So again, a player that I think is significantly underpriced, at least by 0.5, but actually I think at 7.5 million, it would have still been a bit of a decision to make. And when you look at the other players at 7.5 million, I think he holds his own really, really well. So third pick is Bruno Fernandes, and I expect this to be a more controversial section because he's 9 million, so he's not cheap, but I still think he offers very good value for money at that price point. Now, I was a little bit hesitant and reluctant to suggest him to begin with because I wasn't sure he'd be on penalties. I'm still not 100% convinced, but the fact he took a penalty in pre-season recently does suggest that there's a good chance that he keeps them throughout the season. And if that's the case, and the market odds do currently reflect that, by the way, as well, he could be running at a really good rate of returns. Now, last season, he got 0.3 XG per 90, 0.24 XA. So that's, again, thoroughly decent. He's running at over 0.5 XGI per 90. Got 20 attacking returns, which, again, that tallies up pretty well with the underlying data. That's over an attacking return every other game. And although there's a lot of controversy over whether or not he's going to be a more effective FPL asset now that he's dropping deeper with Cunha and Mbeumo in the side, the market data, which, by the way, is powering the bottom two here, the expected points and the projections per 90, still suggests that he's going to be outputting at a very good rate. In fact, the expected projection for the first 12 game weeks is that he'll run at about 0.6 XGI per 90, which is actually slightly ahead of what we saw last season. Now, that might be down to the fact that they've got a decent set of fixtures in there after Arsenal and Man City are out the way. It might also be down to the fact that he's now feeding better quality attackers in Mbeumo and Cunha, or it might just be a combination of all of those things. But I do trust the market data here, and I do think Bruno Fernandes, although expensive at 9 million, if he's still on penalties, I still think that he competes fairly well with assets that are slightly more expensive than him. So 10 million Saka, who might not be on penalties. Palmer at 10.5 has better goal threat, but is 1.5 million more expensive. I think Bruno Fernandes, saying he's underpriced might be a little bit rich, but I think he still offers very good value for money at 9 million. And it's a controversial one because, of course, he's become more popular since some of the analytics tools have launched. But I don't think you should just ignore him because analytics likes him. I think it's something that you should weigh into your opinion. And there's a reason some of these tools do really like him. One, he's got great minutes. He's got penalties as well. And even without the penalties, he's still got good assist threat and still decent goal threat. So, okay, maybe not underpriced, but I still think he offers good value for money. And he's a player that I'm at least considering from the off. That Arsenal fixture does put me off a little bit. But after that, especially in game week 3, I think he's one of the standout captaincy options. And then in game week 7 as well, again, another week where he could be in the conversation for captaincy. So at 9 million, to have a player that is ever in the conversation for captaincy is rare. So for that reason, I think he does offer good value for money. So moving on from Bruno Fernandes to another player that has been talked up a lot since some of the analytics tools have been launched, that is Thiago at Brentford. So just a quick word on why he's become more popular. That is because of the speculation around Yoane Wissa at Brentford. Obviously, it looks likely that he's going to be moving on in the summer, but at time of recording, he's still there and he's still training. So if Wissa stays, Thiago probably isn't the option that we're looking for. However, if Wissa goes, a alongside the fact that Mbeumo has gone as well, Thiago looks in line to start as that centre forward for Brentford because they don't really have too many other options in that position right now. If that's the case, he should get good minutes and he should also have penalties as well. Obviously, there are no such things as guarantees in FPL. We don't know that for sure, but it looks very likely that he would be taking penalties and he would be getting at least decent minutes. Now, at 6 million, if that's the case, that could be a bit of a game breaker. We don't expect Brentford to be quite as effective going forward as they were last year, but they're not going to just scrap all of their principles that they created with Thomas Frank. They're a data-based team, so they're still going to want to try and create as many high XG chances for the centre forward as possible. And if Thiago's the one on the end of that, he could benefit pretty well from the chances being created for him. So at 6 million, if he's on penalties and gets good minutes, then I think he is one of the bargains of the year in FPL. But it comes with a massive asterisk that it only really makes a difference if Wissa goes. It only matters if he is the centre forward for Brentford. So I've put on screen the attacking data from the season before last, before he signed for Brentford, because he didn't really get any minutes due to injury last year. But he seems to be back fit, firing, and fully ready for the start of the season. And if you take this data and maybe obviously account for the fact that we're moving to a superior league, it's still looking pretty promising. I would still expect him to do pretty well in the opening few game weeks. The XGI projection suggests that he should run at just over a goal or an assist every other game. So that's very decent as well. So it all really relies on whether or not he is going to be that starting centre forward and whether Wissa does move on. So keep your eye on that. So my advice with Thiago would be wait and see. If Wissa moves on there and he still looks like he's fit and ready for the start of the season, I would strongly consider him as one of the best value picks in the game at 6 million. It's very rare that you get a talismanic striker on penalties who's nailed in at the start of the season for just 6 million. So keep an eye on it. But again, only if Wissa moves on. So next up, I want to talk about Youri Tielemans. Now, there's been a lot of talk about Aston Villa assets. You've got Watkins, you've got Rodgers, both very good picks. But one that I feel is possibly flying a little under the radar is Tielemans, especially at 6 million. He's only 1.6% owned, so he's very, very differential right now. And if you look at the top couple of points here, so 0.1 XG per 90, 0.17 XA per 90, it's nothing too special. So I wouldn't lose too much sleep over avoiding him. However, there's a key reason I think he's underpriced, and that is the idea that he might well be on penalties for Villa this season. So I don't want to over-egg this section. I don't want to say rush out and go pick Tielemans ahead of Watkins or Rodgers. But if you're looking to try and find good value for money and you don't like some of the 5.5 million options, you might have a penalty taker in a good side at just 6 million. And if he is the penalty taker, I would argue he is underpriced and you should be looking at him as very good value for money. So in terms of the market odds and the data, over the first 5 game weeks, he's expected to get over 4 points a game. And the XGI projection suggests that he should run a little better than what we saw last season. So 0.39 XGI per 90 projection over the first 12 game weeks. That's what the markets are suggesting. And that will be because they feel that there's a good chance of him being on those penalties. Whereas last season, of course, he didn't take all the penalties. Asensio took a couple famously. You had other options. Tielemans might have gotten a little bit of a jump in the underlying data this season because of the likelihood to take penalties. And if he does, at 6 million, I think that is very good value for money. So again, I don't want to over-egg this section. I don't want to say he's essential and at 6 million he's a game breaker, but keep an eye on him. And if you can't afford Morgan Rodgers, or if Morgan Rodgers is out for a little while, we've got news that there might be an injury going on there. At 1 million less, you might get good value for money and a penalty taker who does get very good minutes in a high quality Villa side. So now let's move on to a handful of defenders that I think are underpriced and could offer great value for money in the opening few game weeks and across the season as well. So I'm going to talk about 3 different defenders in this section and flick between the lot of them. Starting off with Lacroix at Palace. At 5 million, I think he is underpriced, and it's tough to put him at 5.5 because you've got Munoz at 5.5 and he offers so much going forward. But Lacroix, in his own right, also offers a lot more than he might have done in previous seasons. The reason for that is defensive contribution points. And if you added in the expected contribution points from last season to his overall points tally, he would have hit almost 150 points in FPL last year, which would have put him level with Munoz. So although Munoz offers a lot of attacking threat, over the season, you might be able to balance that out for 0.5 million less with someone like Lacroix. Now, obviously, that's going to be more of a drip feed of points, and Munoz will get the odd defensive contribution as well. So it might be tempting to spend the extra 0.5 million on the more exciting pick. Obviously, Munoz has got attacking upside, and he could outperform what he did last season as well. But at 5 million, because you're shaving off that 0.5, I do think Lacroix offers very good value for money. He's also got surprisingly good goal threat. So 0.1 XG per 90. It's not as good as Munoz, but it's better than almost any other 5 million defender. And having a centre-back who obviously goes up for set pieces, is so threatening in the air, is pretty helpful to have in your game week 1 side, especially when you bake in the fact that he'll tick along with those defensive contributions anyway. So one final thing on the goal threat, although he only got 1 goal last season in the league, he was expected to get something like 4.1, 4.2 goals. So he massively underperformed that. And whilst that might mean he's a bad finisher, I think when you're going up for set pieces, there is an element of luck attached to it. So there's nothing to suggest that he can't get 3 or 4 goals this season and outperform what he did in terms of attacking contributions anyway. And when you add on the defensive contributions, at 5 million, you might have yourself a little bit of a cheat code. Now, moving across, another 5 million asset I want to talk about is Neco Williams. Now, he's a little bit more popular, but still only owned by under 4% of the game. And a bit like Lacroix, I think when you tally him up against the alternatives at 0.5 more, he stands up pretty well to scrutiny. He's got decent goal threat for a 5 million asset, 0.08. And although he's a wing back in that Forest system, he actually still gets a fair amount of defensive contribution points. I think he would have got 18 last season, which when you compare it to Murillo at 5.5 or Milenkovic at 5.5, although it's not quite as good as those two, because he also has the attacking threat and he's 0.5 less, I think it balances out pretty well. So if you don't have that 0.5 extra to spend on one of the centre-backs at Forest, at 5 million, I think Williams is great value for money. And I think him or Lacroix at 5 million are probably the way that I'd want to spend that money if I only had 5 million to spend. I think they both offer good value and they can compete with players that are a little bit more expensive in that 5.5 million bracket. Now, if we go to the 4.5s, there's one standout option for me that I think is not head and shoulders above the rest, but definitely sticks out as one that I'd want to include. 4.5 million for Anderson at Fulham isn't talked about much at all, only 1.2% ownership, but again, is an absolute monster when it comes to the defensive contribution points. Now, admittedly, he doesn't have a great deal of goal threat, but what he does offer is that consistent drip feed of defensive contributions. And although Fulham only got, I think it was 6 clean sheets last season, their defensive data was actually very, very good. I think they were a top 6 side in terms of the expected clean sheets and the expected goals conceded per 90. And if they can actually return on that this season, and if they can actually start getting the clean sheets to back up the data, which by no means is impossible, Anderson could get a little uptick in points from that as well. The other reason he's been overlooked is because although he was very good on the defensive contributions per match, he got injured for a bit. So overall, I think he would have hit like 24 defensive contribution points, which doesn't rank him amongst the highest of the defenders. But considering the injury, if you cross-pollinated that to the whole season, he would have been up there with the very, very best in the game, the Tarkowskis, the Lacroix, all of those players, the Murillos as well. He would have been standing up tall against those. And at 4.5 million with good defensive data, I think he is going to be a bit of a cheat code, and he's in my game week 1 draft as it stands. And even with a less than promising opening 3 fixtures, I think there's a good chance of defensive contributions in each of those. Against Brighton, against Man United, against Chelsea, he's going to clear the ball a lot. He's going to have to make a few tackles. He's going to have to make some blocks and interceptions. I think he could easily drip feed 4 points in each of those games, and a good chance of a clean sheet against Leeds as well. So I think at 4.5 million, he's the standout. And I think on balance, he should have been priced at least 0.5 more expensive. Right then, special announcement time. And I am absolutely buzzing to finally be able to tell you about my partnership with Solo Analytics this year. I'm absolutely adamant that I don't want to ever partner with people that I don't feel would benefit the videos and benefit you guys. So I reached out to them knowing what they were working on in the background was kind of special. I'll walk through it in a minute, but I'm absolutely delighted that my videos this season are going to be powered by Solo Analytics market odds data. So what does that all mean? Well, you can now check out the tool for yourself at soloanalytics.com. There is a link below in the description as well to help save you time. But let's take a quick look at how the data has powered this video and how it might power my videos for the rest of the season as well. So what is Solo Analytics? Well, I haven't got all day. So Solo Analytics is effectively an FPL planning tool which bakes in market odds and your own opinion. And I think that's what makes this tool so special and why I was so excited to work with them. For the purposes of this video, the way I've used the tool is I've gone into their projections database, which is fed in with all of their market odds based on the expected goals per 90, expected assists per 90, their clean sheets, but also what they've done, which I think is really clever, is they've also added the expected bonus points and the CBIT percentage points as well. To all of that together, brought into one, spit out the expected points per 90 across the first 12 game weeks. So that's how I've interpreted what best value is in this video. As you can see, Bruno Fernandes at 9 million is competing in the expected points versus Saka, Haaland, Palmer as well, all much more expensive players, but also far above Watkins and Isak, who are around the same price. So not only him, but also Eze at 7.5 is well above the average for what a 7.5 million midfielder is competing at. And then if you go further down, you've got Tielemans at 6 million and you've got Strand at 6.5, for example, all players that are getting an average, an expected average of over their price points. Now, you might disagree with some of the points I made in this video or where some of the expected goals or expected assists might lie on some of the players. That's absolutely fine because the benefit of this tool is you can actually change that and it reacts in live time. So Bruno Fernandes is an example as someone who maybe you think he doesn't have quite as much goal threat. If he's playing a little bit further back, well, this toggle down the bottom here can drag down the averages of what the market expects him to do. And all I've done is tweaked it, let's say, down from 0.29 XG per 90 on average to 0.21. Obviously, that's different match to match, but what that does is the algorithm and the formulas react to your interpretation. And now Bruno has become ever so slightly worse value for money. He's still doing well. He's still good value at 5.28 per game, but he's now below Saka and hovering around Florian Wirtz as well. So you can use your own interpretations to help power the tool. Now, there are loads of other features that I won't go into in full force today, but of course you can plan your own FPL lineup and it's all got those market odds baked in as well as your own opinions on expected minutes, goals, assists, all of that as well. So I think that makes this tool genuinely pretty unique and I'm so excited to get under the hood and start using it in my content over the first few weeks. If you've got any questions about the tool whatsoever, and I'm sure you do, please leave a comment below as well. But also importantly, just start playing around with it. The first month is completely free. soloanalytics.com. I've left a link in the description below. Do go check it out, plan your tool and have a go at changing some of the projections as well. I think you'll find it's super easy to use. And the UI is also pretty phenomenal as well. I think it looks great. Now, I've used this in light mode. There's a few people who like dark mode as well. So I'm just going to switch it over for you now. And just like that, you're in dark mode too. So it might be nicer on the eye. You might prefer it that way. I actually quite like it in light mode, but dark mode might be for you. It's got all sorts of fun things under the hood as well. I won't go into things like the market data for teams today, but it's got all of that good stuff. You've got the attack, the expected clean sheets for the first 5, although actually all the way to the first 12 game weeks if you want it. And you can fiddle around with all sorts of projections, effective ownership once the game goes live as well. And you can start toying around with your attitude to risk based on that effective ownership once the game has actually launched too. So That is about as short as I can make this section because I am kind of blown away by this tool, and I will be talking about it and using it in future videos. And I really think this tool is going to help me make better FPL decisions for the first few game weeks and across the season as well. So as we reach the end of today's video, hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully it all makes sense what I've said about solo analytics, but if not, drop a comment below. And importantly, if you could leave a like and subscribe to the channel, that would be really appreciated as well. I'll see you next time as we continue preparing for game week 1 starting next Friday.